Bjorn Lomborg is the author of the book Cool It, The Skeptical Environmentalist's Guide to Global Warming, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Lomborg, thanks very much for coming on. So I keep hearing, just from watching television in this country, that many people are dying of climate change in the United States. Is it a leading cause of death here?
No, by no means. And look, we actually have pretty good data for how many people actually dying from weather-related disasters, so climate-related disasters. And the truth is, over the last 100 years, it's dropped dramatically. Every year in the 1920s, we estimate about 500,000 people died around the world. Now, we've quadrupled the population, and yet the number has dropped like a stone. It's 95% reduced. We're now down to about 20,000 people that die every year. This is not because of global warming. This is simply because getting richer means you stop being in trouble when the weather is bad.
So if the problem, as measured by death rates, is getting better, the threat is in decline, why the focus on it? Why not a focus on cancer, or diabetes, or Alzheimer's, or suicide, or drug ODs? These are all rising.
Yes, absolutely. And if you ask people around the world, the UN did that a couple of years ago. They asked about 10 million people, what do you want us to focus on? And they told us, perhaps not surprisingly, if you're really poor, you worry about healthcare, food, and education. Those were the top things that came out. At the very end, number 16 of 16 priorities came global warming. Not surprising if you're poor, but if you're rich and well-meaning, this is one of the things you can start worrying about. And look, global warming is a real problem, but it's not anywhere the size of what most people let you believe.
So maybe it's an easy problem for the richest in our society to focus on because it doesn't really require anything of them. They can still fly private and have 4 houses and be deeply concerned about this problem. Maybe that's why they've chosen it.
Well, I think it certainly gives a lot of people a sense of, I'm really trying to do something good. I've cut down. I'm no longer eating meat or something like that. But the reality, of course, is if you really wanted to cut carbon emissions dramatically, as many people talk about, you would have to experience a cost that would be much, much higher. So if you take, for instance, the new Green Deal, Bloomberg estimate, and this is just one of many estimates, that it would cost every year about $2.1 trillion. That's two-thirds of the U.S. budget. So, no, we can't afford that. And even if you did, the impact would be fairly small in 100 years. It would be a very small and inefficient way of helping people very little.
Okay, so assuming this is about helping people, and I don't believe that, it's clearly about grabbing power, but let's just pretend that it's about helping people. In the name of helping them, you would probably wind up killing more than you would save because poverty does kill people. We know that.
Exactly. What you have to be very careful about is to say, how do you go and help people, for instance, in Bangladesh and other places? Well, a lot of people will say, well, we need to cut carbon emissions so that they will have less of a problem in 100 years. But of course, the reality is most people in Bangladesh wants to get out of poverty, and we should help them by having more free trade, having more opportunity, having more technology. Those are the things that will make them much richer so that when 2100 comes around, they will not only be better able to tackle global warming, but also all the other challenges, Alzheimer, cancer, all the other problems you were talking about.
So you're a man who writes about science, who's fluent in the terms of science. How do you feel when you start hearing politicians discuss scientific issues with theological terms, talking about the morality of your society and making claims to their own virtue? Does that make you uncomfortable?
Well, I'm an economist, actually, so I look at all what the scientists are telling us. They're telling us global warming is a problem, but it's also a moderate one. They tell us by the end of the century, global warming will cost somewhere between 2 and 4% of global GDP. Remember, by then, we'll be about 10 times richer per person. So about 1,000% richer, and then we'll have to pay 2 to 4%. That's a problem, not the end of the world. When politicians go out and tell us we've got to go morally do something that's really nice, cutting off meat or not driving your car or something in order to pacify this problem. They're simply talking against the better opportunity of actually dealing with this problem, because that's not going to happen. You can't tell people to do this. So what you need to do is to focus on technology. Look, Americans and everyone have had many problems in the past. We have not solved those problems by telling people, could you please do with less? What we've done is, through technology, enable people to do more with less, actually be able to be better off with technology. So this is all about innovation. We need to innovate the price of green energy down below fossil fuels. And then, of course, everyone, not just rich, well-meaning Americans and Europeans, but also the Chinese and the Indians.
Right. No, got it. That's not even, of course, that's not even on the table. Thank you. Mr. Lomborg, I appreciate it.
It should be.
It should be. Good to talk to you tonight. Thank you.